Okay. Looks like we have 5 people, maybe. Morning, folks. Thank you for joining so quickly. I'll be posting the links like this at 9:30 Tuesdays, so you can look forward to more of this. So there is a chat on the side. Feel free to type whatever you want in there. I'm gonna do a demonstration, and then I'm gonna take questions from you guys, and then we'll see what time it is and continue from there. Today I want to focus on looking at how to use Replit. I posted some videos, but maybe you guys ran into some issues that you need to ask me about. And then we'll talk about, and I'll demonstrate some of the basics of HTML. Let's see. What is due so far? Oh, good. Sounds like you guys can hear me. Wait, are you guys in my other class too? The names look familiar. Probably in my logic class. Okay, so chapter 2. Oh, not due till September 8th. Okay. Now you may wonder, why the heck is the first thing not due for so long? For a lot of my classes, you're learning something new, a skill, like a marketable skill. So a lot of my courses have steep learning curves in the beginning, so that way we can actually get to the useful stuff. All right, anyway, some of you guys, I guess, would have saw my demonstration last time on how to use Replit. So I'm going to be concise here, and we'll go ahead and get started. So on Replit here, let's see, make sure I was showing you guys the right screen. Yes, okay. On Canvas, I've organized the course into these modules. So if you hit home on the left, you can get into there. And so the idea is you start at the top and you go through each item. Hopefully I've set it up. The goal is to set up in such a way that you'll have everything you need for the next item if you finish the item previously. But it looks like there's some other stuff in here that just doesn't have any explanation, so I might talk about that too. Chapter 1 is more about the history of the web and a little bit about the internet, and maybe even a little bit about computers. So if that's interesting to you, you can look at the whole thing. Let's see. How many people did the quiz here? Doesn't say. Oh well. We'll see. Okay. Anyway, so we're not going to be talking about chapter 1 is the point. We're going to go ahead and jump into chapter 2. Okay. I've got the PowerPoint on here that's tied into the textbook, the one with the dots on it. That's the main one we'll be using. The other texts, we'll only use those if I specifically mention. So be careful not to lose your books. There will be ones you don't use, so don't lose them in the back of a closet or something. They are relentless they have no mercy at the bookstore. Okay. Anyway, chapter 2. So I'm going to open the PowerPoint just to help keep myself on track here. But at the same time, I'm going to go to Replit here. Make sure this is still on. Ooh, I was on the wrong screen. There we go. Thank you, Alex. Okay. It's probably torture for you guys when I'm making a mistake and you have to wait for me to see that you said it. Sorry about that. All right. Chapter 2, and it is showing up now. Yes. Okay. Okay, so the main focus that I want us to look at in chapter 2 is how to basically communicate to the computer how you want your web page design. That's what HTML is. It's just a structure language for designing structures like a blueprint, and then the computer just puts those pieces together following the directions that you've given it. Okay, so we're going to learn how to learn the grammar and the vocabulary of the HTML language, which sounds like a lot, but as far as languages go, it's extremely simple. In English, we have nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, gerunds, past participles, all of this crazy stuff. In HTML, you have very few structures that you have to learn. Okay, I think there's only 3. Okay, once you know that there are only 3 different things, you can learn what those different things can be. Okay, anyway, more detail. It talks about some other stuff in here. We'll touch on that. Okay. And so as we're going through the notes, you may wonder, what should I be paying attention to? I believe for this class, everything's open note because I use practical exams for the midterm and the final. So it's more of a test of can you demonstrate that you know the skill within the time limit. So if you have to look at, if you don't study and you don't know how to do it, you won't be able to look it up within the time limit. Anyway, so fairly open testing. So as we go through, you want to pay attention to the fact that you want to make sure you understand what I'm talking about. That's all. Okay, don't worry about memorizing too many things. Okay, so the first piece of the HTML language, and probably the most important, is HTML elements. All right. So every structure in a web page is basically an element. Okay. Some elements are invisible. Some you can't see. Some stack on top of each other. Some are very basic. Every HTML element is actually the same at its core. It's just manipulated by different properties. But anyway, as far as the language is concerned, the way you identify an HTML element is two ways. Either a pair of tags, okay, and a tag is a word or letter enclosed in angle brackets. They call these angle brackets, it's the less than and greater than sign. Excuse me. And they call them angle brackets. Okay. So what does that look like? Well, they talk about it and then not show it. Okay. So here on slide 8, I just want to talk a little bit about what we're looking at here. So at the end of this course, you should be able to look at this and tell me what's going to happen. Okay, it looks like a lot right now, but I'm going to break it down into its different parts for you, and then that way, when you're looking at it and building it yourself, you can understand what you're doing. So, the first thing is this line right here, doc type. I could talk about each of these things way too long, but I don't want to. This tells the computer what version of HTML you're writing in. Okay, so we are in HTML5. We've been in HTML5 for a while. So what they did was they changed it so that just lowercase HTML will use the latest version. So it's pretty easy. If you don't include this, the computer will just automatically assume some default value for this. So it's not absolutely required. You might want to get in the habit of putting it in there, though. I'll explain this. I tend to explain this too many times, but there's something called search engine optimization. And people with websites, they want to have their website show up sooner on the list of search results. Okay, and so just making sure I'm still up here. Okay, yeah. So why, if this isn't required, why would I include it? Well, if you want to get your website or web page higher up on the search results, you have to try to figure out how Google ranks things. And so only people at Google know for sure how this works, but there are people that try to guess. And so one guess is if your HTML document is entirely complete with no missing information, you're going to get a higher rank. Okay, whether that's very significant or not, who knows, but every little bit helps. So that's why it's here. If you are doing assignments later on and you don't put that in there, that's totally fine. Okay, a lot of the demos I'm going to use, unless it's already in there, I'm probably not going to type it, just because I'm trying to demonstrate something. Basically, if you can just look at this and understand what it is, it's optional, but it tells you what type of HTML the page uses. That's good enough. All right. This next one here is actually this actually includes all three parts of HTML. Okay, we have an element. Okay, how do we know something is an element? It has either open and close tags. Okay, so what's an open tag? That's angle bracket and then a word or letter, and then a closing angle bracket. And then that's the opening tag. So it gets confusing. Opening angle bracket, closing angle bracket. That makes this word the opening tag. And then down here there's a slash HTML tag. This is the closing HTML tag. So that means from here to here, this is all considered part of the HTML element because we're opening here, closing here, everything inside is its own element, but it's all part of or contained within the HTML element. Okay, that also is kind of boilerplate. You just put all your code in between those. Again, if you don't do that, it'll figure it out. And then the next part is really important. Most web pages, you should always do this, are divided into a head section. So how do we know? Remember, this is an opening tag. We have the head opening tag. Let me bring this back to full screen, so I don't have to keep scrolling. Okay, we have an opening head tag, closing head tag. What does that mean? That means this is the head element, all of this stuff here. This is the start of it. Here's the end. Everything here is included inside of that head element. All right, and then there's a body element that's similar. So there's a head and a body. Okay, inside of the head, we put elements that manipulate properties of the web page. And in the body, we add and manipulate elements that actually are the structure or what you see when you look at the web page. Okay, so some examples of the attributes. And remember, as we're going, if you're thinking of any questions, type them in the chat, and then I'll check in between, moving between sections to answer those questions. Okay, in the head section, we have a title element, and we know that because it has an open and close title tag. And then right here, this is an example of a standalone tag, which means it doesn't have a closing tag, it just has an open tag, and it can't really contain anything between, if it only has an open tag, it doesn't have an open and close tag, it can't contain anything in between it. All right, so earlier I said, those are all, I think that's all the elements here. This down here, this text, since it's in the body and it's just typed on their page, it would just show up as text on the page with no formatting. Okay, and I can show you that here in a second. I want to get on Replit so we can look at some demos. But anyway, so all the parts are here, and we'll go over the parts in more detail later, but I just want to show you, because I don't want to confuse you at this point with, just ignoring this. So, with an opening tag, or actually with any HTML element, it just so happens this is the HTML element. But anyway, with every element, after the opening angle bracket, or less than sign, you put your letter or your words to tell it what type of tag that's going to be, and then normally you would close it there. But here they put a space, which means now we're no longer typing the element name. The element name has now been decided as HTML. But we type another word. This word here, this is called an attribute. Okay. And it can be named pretty much anything. And then we put an equal sign to show what value we want stored in that attribute. Okay, so if you haven't heard the word attribute for a while, or maybe you've never heard it, basically these are properties or facts or descriptions of an element. So here I would describe this line as, okay, in my mind, here's what I'm thinking. This is an opening HTML tag, okay, because I've looked up to this point. This is an opening HTML tag, space. Okay, it has one attribute called lang, L-A-N-G. Okay, that attribute has a value of en. Now, as I'm looking at this and showing you, in the actual assignments and quizzes and tests and stuff, I don't expect you to be able to memorize all of this verbatim. I don't even do that. Okay, if I need to know, how do I set up for this kind of doc type or something, I just Google it. all right, and then get the exact syntax. I understand what I'm trying to do, why I'm trying to do it. I'm not just, but you just can't, you know, most people can't memorize every single word and letter combination for everything. So don't feel bad if you need to look it up constantly or look back. Definitely look back at your previous assignments and such. Okay, anyway, so I told you the way I would read this: opening tag, attribute lang, value of en. All right. That's okay if I don't know why that's there. It's still an attribute and a value. Okay, so I can just leave that. In this case, this is telling the browser which language this page is in, and that's so it can check if it's in its native language. If it's not, it can try to run a translator. But again, that's something that's optional. Okay, do you see anywhere else in here where there are attributes being used? So the doc type is a little bit different type of element. So I'm going to start down here. So we had that attribute, head doesn't have one, title doesn't. Here we go. The title element has an open and closing tag. But look at the closing tag and look at all the closing tags. There will never be any attributes or anything in a closing tag. Okay, it's just the slash and the name. All attributes always go in the opening tag. Okay, so none there. Okay, in the meta tag here, we do have an attribute here called charSet, and the value is UTF-8. And if you care to know, you can Google that. You won't need to know the specifics of this for the class, but this is just one character set. So you know, if you wanted different characters of different languages, you could use a different set. But very rarely will you need to do that. For this class anyway. Okay. Is there anything else? No? Okay, so I think we can go ahead and start messing around in Replit. If you haven't created an account yet, so you'll want to do that. Okay, so I'm going to log out to go through the whole process here. Okay. So you want to go to repl.it. So this is where you'll do all your homework. I use this website to test things, to build things for classes. It's a very useful tool. It's free, and so if you want to use it outside the class, it's totally fine. I would keep it as a portfolio of your work. Unfortunately, they keep changing the user interface, so every semester we have to figure out how to get back into it. Or I would just create a video. But this thing is a work in progress, so it's changing a lot. All right. So once you've created an account and you logged in, you would see a screen like this. Actually, the first time you create an account, it might ask you some introductory questions. You can either answer those, or there should be a skip button at the bottom. Either one's fine. It'll bring you to the same place. Okay, so you would see something like this. I do want to mention, I didn't mention this in the other class. If you go to My REPLs, everything you create will be saved. So look, I have stuff from a year ago. That must have been when I discovered this site. 7 months ago, 8 months ago. Okay, it's going to keep going. But anyway, that's a lot of programs and websites and da-da-da. Most of it's just demos. But anyway, if you're looking for something that you created, you look in here, all right? If you have multiple classes with me, you may want to create a folder for the different classes so that way your homework doesn't get all mixed up. So it's easy as click a new folder, you put class, whatever you want to call the class. And then you can drag your programs into it, I think. Yeah. Okay. You can also star them, favorite them, and then that way you can kind of get to them quickly. Anyway, that's more useful for me. A lot of people just use this for the class and forget about it, but it's really useful. It lets you program in basically any basic or modern language. But how will we be using this for the class? Well, once you're logged in, create a new REPL, and it asks what language you want to program in: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Because those all three work together to make what we're used to seeing as a web page. And nowadays, a lot of software is being created with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I used to teach this class as a web design class, and that was kind of a dead-end career that's being replaced by different types of things. But now that all the software is being built with this, it's a very valuable skill to know. Okay, anyway, create a new REPL, choose a language. It'll give you a fake name here, a random name. Bewitched cumbersome drivers. So it'll be some random combination of words. You can keep that or change it. You can change it later too. I'm just going to leave it for now. And then I don't think you guys can change this, but it's important to understand why it's asking you whether you want to make this public or private. I think you can only make it public. You guys will only be able to make them public, but you want them to be, because this is how you're going to turn in your homework. You'll be able to send me the link to your Replit project and it'll bring me right to it. Okay. So one thing here is we've got, I believe this is the console for JavaScript down here. We might clean this up a little bit. What we're looking at is a development environment and a virtual machine embedded into a web page. So it's a lot of really powerful tools embedded in a very simple tool, which is useful for us because we don't have to install a million things and we don't have to save a million files. All the files here are stored on their servers, and anyone can access them with a link. You don't even have to have an account. So you can create something, send it to someone. Anyway, once you've created it, if you edit it at all, it saves automatically, as long as you have an internet connection. Okay. And to be able to turn in your homework or show someone what you're doing. So for example, if you are doing an assignment and you get stuck, what you can do is send me what you have, copy, hit share. I think you can just copy the URL out of the top too. Then you're going to copy the share link, and then you just email that to me, and I can look exactly at what you're doing, and I can even make a copy, make some changes, and send that back to you, just kind of show you what to do. And when I grade your assignments, it'll be easy because I can just run it. I don't need to download, install anything. Okay, anyway, it's a useful tool. On the left, we have our files. So with the website, they assume that you're going to have these three basic types of files. For now, ignore the other two. We'll get into this in Chapter 3, CSS. JavaScript we won't talk about till Chapter 14. So if you want to, you could even delete these files if they're bothering you. This is your virtual machine. These are your files. You can do whatever you want with them. We'll keep the index.html. If you ever want to add more files or add folders to organize, those buttons are here. You will need to, in the future, use this upload file button to put some pictures into your web pages. So I'll talk about that more, but that's useful to know. You can upload an entire folder of files. Probably won't need to do that. And then if you want to download your entire project as a zip file so that you can put it on your local machine or send it to someone, that's the option is there also. So it's amazing that this tool is so free. Keep it on the files here. These other three we won't worry about in this class. My more advanced classes, we go over those. You can look at them, but they just aren't useful for what we're doing. Okay, so anyway, here's our boilerplate starter code for a web page. It looks very similar to what we just looked at. In Replit, they include the boilerplate code, which just means this is going to be included almost every time. Why would you retype it every time? It's just going to include it in the beginning, which is really nice part of this. So here's our tags, HTML, head tag. We can just ignore all this for now. Oh, I did want to tell you, in the example, we looked at the title element. Okay, so each element is doing something on the web page. Okay, right now, I'm going to get rid of this line, this JavaScript line, because it's not doing anything. There's nothing in the body that's going to show up on the screen. So where is this title showing up? Okay, think about it. I don't see it anywhere. It's not on the web page. There's a little button over here that's going to be really useful in this class, because if you put something on a web page, you hit run, so you type in your code here. This is the preview of the web page. Now this preview is kind of tiny, and so it's hard to see if we build anything large. So we have this little button over here. You can click that. It'll load just a window of that web page. So that's a really useful button. Okay. Oh, but if I open that in a new tab, you'll also see where that title element is affecting it. So it puts it up in the title bar for the tab. Okay, so if we change that to CIS 099, just so we can see, okay, run it, nothing there. But then up here now, because we changed the text in the title, that changes what's on the tab there. So that's what that is. So that's why it's in the head section and not in the body section, because it's not actually manipulating anything down inside of the web page. So the title element always goes in the head section. Okay, certain elements can go in either. Certain elements really are meant for the head section, like these meta elements are really for the head section. This link element. Okay, none of this is putting stuff on the screen. Okay. So let's look back here at some HTML stuff. Okay. So this is just telling you again about the head and the body section. You can take a look at that. I will be asking you questions about what goes where. It's common sense though. After a while, you'll understand. Okay. So what are some more elements that we can use? Let me check to see if you guys have any questions here before we move on. Okay. Nope. Making sense. Hopefully. Okay. So I'm just going to look at a bunch of these and then we'll test them out. So here's, in these examples, we have the code on one side. Here's what it'll look like on the web page. So H1, this is called the heading element. And the reason I'm making a big deal about it is we've already got one element so far called a head element. H1 through H6 are heading elements. And not that far from now, we're going to be introduced to the header element. So head, heading, header. That'll be fun to keep straight. So anyway, so if you want to make larger text for headings, you can use H1 through H6. The paragraph element, we're going to be using this. Basically, there should not be any floating text on your web page. Basically, if you just want to put some text on there in a container, you generally use a paragraph or the P for paragraph. Okay. It includes in its properties some spacing above and below, and this doesn't make sense now, but if you put all of your text in a paragraph or in different paragraphs throughout your website, you'll be able to change all of those at once instead of having to, oh, I want a red text on my website. So you make the entire thing red, then the next day you want it blue. You don't have to go through and change every individual thing to blue. You just say everything that's in paragraphs go to blue. That's what we'll learn in chapter 3. But anyway, we're going to be using paragraphs. Okay. Line breaks. This is a standalone tag. All this does is push down the elements that you have used so far. I think, yeah, this gives me enough now. We can kind of build some stuff, some very basic stuff. Okay. So, almost in chapter 2 for sure, for most of these, you're going to start a new project and then just go directly to the body. You don't need to change anything else. And then go into the body. Sorry, I saw something. I'm going to forget to show you this if I don't write it down. BR. Okay. The other thing is, take a look at the code here in the center. So on the left, we have our files. Here in the middle, it's showing us this is the file that's open. Okay. You can have multiple files open. And on the right, it's showing us the output. If you look in the middle where the file is open, we have these words. They're actually they're actually different colors. Okay, why are they different colors? Well, this tool is trying to tell you, based on what you've written, how it is interpreting it. So here, let's ignore the doc type for now. Let's just start down here. What do you notice about the element names in here? They're all the same color. They're all this light blue. Sorry to anyone that's colorblind. You'll just have to do extra work on yours. You know what? I bet someone has created a bold and italics text formatting color coding for colorblind people. Anyway, all the elements are the same. So if you see somewhere where there's an element name and it's the wrong color, so looking here, if I type this out and I ran it and I had, this isn't going to work because I'm missing this, but I can easily identify that because there's a big chunk of black text right here that's not supposed to be there. Why is it there? Well, I forgot this. Okay. We see some purple stuff here. What did I call these? Do you guys remember? So all the purple ones, those are the second part of HTML, attributes. Okay. And then these are the values. And the values are in, I don't know what you want to call that, tan? Green, yellow, tan. It's kind of a weird brown. Orange. Anyway, notice the values are in double quotes. That's important so that the computer can identify that you're telling it to use those characters and not something else named that. That probably doesn't make any sense. If you ever take a programming class, it'll make more sense later. Just for this class, remember to put your values in double quotes. Now also, because of the way I had this set up, it's important to pay attention to the line numbers here. I'm zoomed in too much, so it had put line 5 and 7 onto multiple lines here. So if I zoom out, it'll stretch it out. Just be aware of that. When you're zoomed in, it does that. Okay, let's put some stuff here. So I cleaned out the body. Check some questions. Nope, okay. Clean out the body. And then I talked about the color coding. And the reason I actually wanted to talk about that was, you'll notice the indentations on here too. These weren't on the PowerPoint slide. I'm not sure why they weren't. But here in our HTML files, we want to indent our elements so we can see how they're nested. We want to see which elements are inside other elements. Okay, so like I said before, we have an HTML element that starts here and it closes down here, which means everything in between the opening and closing tag is considered inside of it. Okay, so if I minimize that, everything is between HTML open and close tag, all right? And then, so I indent everything inside of that one level, okay? And you can either do 2 spaces or a tab. I think on Replit it always makes it 2 spaces either way, but you can always, I think you can just hit tab or put 2 spaces. It's up to you. But you want to make sure you include your input or your indents, because this makes it much more readable for humans, and I'm the one that has to look at this, so to make sure to try to find any errors. It'll make it easier for you to find errors too. Also, in a work environment, if you make something like this, generally you're working with other people, so you'll have a set of standards. So indenting your HTML code like this is a standard best practice from being efficient. So you'll notice, because the head is inside the HTML, we've indented that. Why are these elements indented in again? What is causing that? Think about it for a second. Why are those 2 indent levels in? That's because they are in this head element. Open head, closing head. Oops. Okay. And then I close that. You can see, or minimize that, all those things are in there. You know what? This might actually make it easier too for you to work. If you just, in chapter 2, if you don't want to see all this, you can kind of minimize that and then just work down here. Okay, so indents are important. One nice thing about Replit is if you type your code wrong, or you do your indents wrong somewhere, it can be very annoying to go in and move everything. Well, you can select multiple lines. One thing you can do is select multiple lines. And you can press tab to indent them one level, or shift tab to go out one. So you can move multiple lines. That's very helpful. The other thing is, you can also just right click in here and do format document, and it will automatically move things around to their standards, which apparently, I guess their format document has the head and the body on the outermost, which is actually not a bad idea, because there's not going to be anything outside of the head and the body. So it doesn't really make sense to indent that part. Okay. So let's add some elements. So we looked at headings. I'm also going to introduce this idea of a HTML comment. If I can remember how to do it. There it is. Okay. So headings. So what I typed here on line 11, this is a special kind of element. What it does is, and it grays it out like this, it's telling the browser, just ignore this, okay? You can use this to add little notes in your code. You guys probably won't use it all that often, but I use it to kind of make this easier to follow. So if you are following along on Replit, you can just watch this if you want, and maybe watch it when you're doing the homework, or you could be working on the homework right now and just glancing at this, or whatever you want to do. These are optional, by the way, because I record them so you can watch them later if you want. I don't take attendance or whatever, but it allows you to ask questions. Anyway, you can either watch, or you can put your name in one and see what you get. Okay, when writing code, copy and paste is your friend. All right. And I think, let's see if I can do this cool thing. Yeah. So in the Replit editor, you can use Control to select different areas. So here I can change this from an H1 to an H2. Will it keep that? Whoa, it will. Okay. So typing these out would be really annoying. But what I can do here, I'm going to highlight this too. Now I'm going to hold Control and highlight this too. And now I have these twos highlighted. I'm going to go down, change this to 3, 4, 5. Okay. So you can see how that can be fairly helpful. All right, what else? We have paragraph. Also, if I make any grammar mistakes, call me out. I think this might be more appropriate. I don't know. Oh, if I make any mistakes, please correct me. Alex has been really good so far. So, I saw your question, Alex, about the headings. So, the idea is the way they've numbered them is by rank. So, if you were going to have, in the example here, I have 5 subheadings. If I was going to have this massive document with headings, and then within those headings, I would have level 2 subheadings, and then within those, I might have level 3 subheading sections, you know. And again, the reason you do that is because if I want to change all the H3 subheadings in the entire web page or on the entire site, I can do that if they're all labeled as H3s. Okay, so anyway, keep asking if I'm not hitting the answer that answering the question that you're asking, but really we're really probably only ever going to use H1 and H2 in our class, and this in chapter 3 you'll see we could actually change everything you want about this. We could make H5 bigger than H1 by changing the properties. So for now, just understand that these are subheadings, so that if you're reading some code, you can understand that. Or if someone says, you know, I want a heading, oh, that's H1, you know. These basic ones here, I don't really like to make you guys memorize a lot of stuff, especially because Google exists, but these 3, headings, paragraph, and line break, I would want you to know off the top of your head, which trust me, you'll use them enough that it won't be a big deal. But there are so many elements that it would be ridiculous to go memorize them all. You would have to really be in love with HTML to do that. And if you're interested in technology and you're taking this class and maybe not taking a programming class right now, and you really enjoy this, I highly recommend trying a programming class, because HTML is not really a programming language. It's just a structure language, and it's very simple. There's no logic. Once you start adding in logic, things get really fun, and you can kind of build literally anything you want with it. Okay. Anyway, line break. That's what it was. Okay. So if we show examples of those, we're not going to see all that much for the line break anyway. Let's try putting another paragraph, just so you can see how they interact. Okay. And I want to show you some stuff with this. Notice, and I'm going to open this in another page so you can see how these line up on the page. So basically, by default, everything on a web page is going to start, you know, if you add code to your file, it's going to run that code in order. The browser will read that code in order. Okay, add a heading, add a heading, add a heading, yada yada, add paragraph, and so it's just going to stack those on the left side. Okay, and how many websites have you seen where all the information is just stacked on the left, right? Not very many websites. So not until after chapter 4 are we going to be able to even think about moving some stuff around on the page. We'll get there, though. We'll get there. So we have those paragraphs. You'll notice everything is pushing the next thing down to the next line. And, well, maybe you won't notice that. But I want to show you something. What if I put all these headings on the same line? Okay, on line 12. And I think I can do this faster if I do this. Boom. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, wow, that saves a lot of time. Okay, and I run it again. So these are all on line 12. Okay, if I stretch this out, see they're all on the same line. But they're not on the same line here. Does anyone know? Does anyone see that? Yes, Alex, you can have these ones that I'm showing you, H1, paragraph, and BR. You're going to have a lot of those potentially in a web page. It's like, I've never used this example before, but if you've ever used something, maybe Microsoft Word, where you add a text box, putting a paragraph in the page is basically like adding a text box for you, and then you can put any text in it you want. That's kind of how you think about it. So we have our open and tag. This is called the inner HTML. Okay, we have our open tag, paragraph, closing tag, paragraph, our inner text, or it's called inner text or inner HTML. This is going to be affected by all the properties of a paragraph, and then that'll show up here. And so if we look here, and I use Google Chrome for all of this stuff, so I'm testing everything in Google Chrome. It's just my personal preference. You can use whatever you want, but if it doesn't work for me, I might send it back and say, it's not working in Chrome, and then you can tell me if you're using it in a different browser. Or you could just test it in Chrome to make sure it works. Most of the stuff is in this class is so basic, it should work in really work in every browser. It'd be ridiculous if it didn't. Okay, anyway, in Chrome, the reason I'm bringing that up is this is in Chrome. I can hit F12 to open this console, and this thing is super powerful. I just realized. Okay, after I show you this, I want to show you something cool. Okay, anyway, if you open this and you're under this Elements tab, you get this little arrow here. This is the inspector. Click it, it changes your cursor to an arrow, and you can select any element here. And one thing that's hard about HTML and CSS is so many of the elements and properties add white space. Basically things you can't see. So this inspector gives you kind of a view. I'm highlighting over this H1, and it says these are all the properties of this H1 by default. The color, by default, H1s are black. They have a font of 32 pixels Times New Roman. Now margin, this number right here, it says 21.44 px. I'm guessing some of you guys know what px stands for. So that's pixels. So what this is saying, it says 21.44 pixels and 0 pixels. So it has two numbers. The first number is top and bottom. So if you notice anything different about the top and the bottom of this H1, it's that there's those brown lines. That's the margin space. Okay, so that margin space from this element is pushing down this stuff this far. Okay, and so the H1 has a larger margin. I think it's based on the size of the text, maybe. It must be a percent of the text size, because that one's only 19 margin, 18, it's going down. Oh, this one's up again, 21. That's weird. Okay, but anyway, Yeah, I'm not sure why the headings are different. It must have to do with the way they're interacting margin-wise. Okay, and let's look at the paragraphs, though, because they're all the same. They each have a margin of 16 pixels, for sure. So you can see how, if I want to add 3 paragraphs of text to my page, I could put all 3 of those paragraphs in a paragraph element, or I could put those in a single one. Okay, so let's try putting them in a single one and see how that affects it. So I'm going to get rid of this closing tag, this closing tag, and this open, and this open. Okay, and then since we're talking about code formatting, there are certain things that I'm going to mention, like the indentations. That's standard for everyone. Whether or not you put, so I have this paragraph all in one line. That's because it's a paragraph is just going to be a block of text. There's probably not going to be any other elements inside of there usually, but I could also do it this way, where I put the open paragraph here and then the text and then the closing one. That way I can kind of see where that is. It's just personal preference. For something like a paragraph or an H1 or H2, I usually put those just on one line together like this, because as your files get longer, it can be really annoying to have to keep scrolling, and some of these do get fairly long. It's not that you are going to be writing a super long one, it's you'll be given a super long one, and then you have to go through and make changes. It's not a typing class, so please do use copy and paste as much as you can. Try to pay attention to some of the tips that I'm using as I do these demos. If you have questions on that, definitely ask, because sometimes I use shortcuts without realizing them. If you do this every day, you'll get used to the shortcuts. If you don't do it every day, that's fine. You can still do it without shortcuts. Okay. I didn't really show off the line break that well, so I'm kind of just winging it here, but what happened here, I put all these in the same paragraph. Well, now they're all on the same line. Okay, but I only want one paragraph element, but I want them on different lines. This is where I could use the line break element. And so this is an example of where I might put an element inside of a paragraph. So by putting this, remember the line break is a standalone tag, by putting this after this sentence here, it's going to push down anything after this onto the next line. Okay, and then I'll put another one at the end here. And then I'll load this in another page because I know it's squished over here. Okay, and so now we have those three. We have one, this is one paragraph. So if I open the inspector again, it's one paragraph, but now it doesn't have the margin between the sections. So you can control quite a bit just with how you structure things. Okay. Oh, I need to say this. I think it might say this in the directions. If you guys are reading any of these directions and anything doesn't make sense, a link is broken, a page number is wrong, tell me, and then I'll fix it, because I have like 16 different sections of classes with different material, so I kind of rely on you guys to help me keep things up to date. And you may have noticed that things go a little bit slow in my classes, so just dealing with so many different things. Okay, anyway, you guys know how it is right now. People watching this later are going to be like, what is he talking about? Okay, so I showed you the headings. You can put line breaks and headings. Okay. Let me see. Oh, okay. I think we only have 15 minutes. Through 9:30 to 10:45. Okay. So I do this demo. I want to show you guys one of the fundamental facts of the web that a lot of people take for granted and don't understand. Sorry, wearing these earphones so much makes my ears hurt. Okay. So the setup for this is you need to understand the basics of how the web works. So when I say the web, what I'm talking about is I am on a client computer. I'm on a computer that wants to access a web page. So I type in an address, right? And then when I hit enter, I get routed to that web server. And then I get the web page. What does that mean, I get the web page? What's happening is you're actually downloading a file from another computer. So when I go to dominoes.com, I've downloaded a file, okay? And what does that file look like? Well, it looks a lot like what we were just doing in here. Okay, how do we see that? Well, in Google Chrome, you can hit Control U, and it will actually show you the file that was given to the browser to generate the web page. So you can see all of the, oh, that's nice, that's funny. They put a little ASCII art comment in there. I never saw that before. All right, anyway, a bunch of code. So we have things like, is there any, div, we haven't talked about that yet, but that's kind of like a paragraph with no properties. Here's that header I was making a big deal about. Here's a body section, head section. So some of this stuff we recognize. Now, don't get too scared looking at some of this stuff. What this is here, this big wall of junk, this is JavaScript code, but it's been minified, which removes all of the returns and spaces, because each space in a file takes that much longer to download the file. So this is just JavaScript code that's been minified. It's actually been run through a tool that converts all of your variables to single letters, and it makes it as short as possible. Anyway, it's doing something. There's no way we'll ever figure out what this is doing by looking at this. It's probably auto-generated. They probably have some software that auto-generates a ton of stuff, because this website's dynamic. We're going to be building static websites. Chapter 14, we'll make some interactive ones. Love you.
Love you. See ya.
See ya. We'll make some interactive web pages towards the end, but most of ours are going to be static in the beginning. Okay, anyway, I'm running out of time to order this pizza. So I want to do delivery. Putting my address in here, so please don't please don't come visit me unannounced or anything. When is my next class? Am I even gonna have time for lunch? 1. Yes. Okay. Cool. All right. Anyway, I'll build my own pizza. Okay, so I was setting this up by saying, what am I looking at? Well, it's a file I've downloaded. Okay, so if I want a pizza, I'm selecting what I want. Okay, I'm limited to what options they've given me. 16-inch extra large, so I can actually open the inspector here. Actually, I want the large to be bigger, so I can actually go in and select this text here. And since I have this file, I can change it to whatever I want. So now a large is 99 inches. Let's see if them fit that in the oven. Okay, the next step is choosing your crust. Okay. At some point, we're going to talk about forms in this class much later on. But we are faced with this here. What are these circles? These are called radio buttons. And they are mutually exclusively selectable. I think that's right. Which means you can only select one at a time. So that makes sense, right? You can't have two different types of crust. Unless it was like half and half. I don't even know how that would work. Well, let's try and make it so it does work. So radio buttons are, you can only select one at a time. Does anyone know the structure or have a guess at the structure for selecting multiple things at a time? It's not a radio button. It's actually a checkbox. So I can go in, change these to checkboxes. I might cut this part out of the video so Domino's doesn't kill me. So you guys get this as a bonus. All right, how about we have Brooklyn style crust, hand toss crust, and crunchy thin crust all at once. Now, if you're paying attention, you may know that this isn't actually going to make a difference when I go to it. Because the way they actually program this, it doesn't matter which one is selected. It actually matters which one you clicked last. Okay, so, but you can manipulate this. And I'm sure there are websites where this would cause a problem. Now, Domino's has a lot of money. They hired, their website's pretty good. They hired someone who knew what they were doing. I have not found any vulnerabilities. All right, do I want to add sides? I don't. Is there a no button? Okay, so I want delivery. Just a gross cheese pizza by itself. No toppings. Oh man, they really want me to get some extra stuff here. It's really good marketing. I think I always get dessert. If they didn't show it, I wouldn't get it. So they're good at that. Okay. Bring me to the checkout. I only have 1 minute here. Okay. It's 10:49. That's way too much. Let's continue checkout. It's probably going to try to ask me to put in my credit card information. Should I do that on the video? No. Man. Okay, 14:49. Okay. Let's be nice to the delivery guy. So, let's go in. Domino's has enough money, right? Okay, so let's take 1049 here. We'll put, $0 to Domino's. $0 to the government. They got enough money. Actually, they have a lot of deficit probably. And let's give all the money to the delivery driver. Instead of just getting the pizza for free. So there we go. Whoops, Y9. What's going on there? It's not a number. There we go. Okay. Anyway, so you can kind of edit. Oh, I wonder if it'll work here. Okay, time's up. You can leave if you want. I do have one more. This doesn't take that long. Here, was that Times Courier? It didn't work last time. We'll see if it works this time. There we go. Have you ever been to a website to get some information and they pop up a little modal in front of you that grays out the screen and removes the scroll bar and says you have to subscribe or pay to read our articles. This site used to have that. I think they might have changed. But anyway, they've sent you the file with the information, and that file blocks the information using HTML and CSS built into the file. There it is. Okay. I just lost my scroll bar, and everything's grayed out, so I'll go ahead, open that thing again here. So this it's grayed out. That's not anything like built into the browser that's like canceling anything. That's literally just a gray rectangle that they put over this, so we can select that and get rid of that. This modal that's in the way, get rid of that. Okay, that's the easy part, getting the stuff out of the way. But how do we get the scroll bar back? Well, that's CSS. I'll show you, but then we'll talk about it more if you remind me later. We need the body. We want to find the body. So we can actually search in here, which would make this a lot easier. The property for turning the bar on and off is called overflow. So what we're doing is we're looking for where they've hidden the overflow. There it is, overflow hidden. That's not good. So let's get rid of that property. And now we have our scroll bar. And now we can browse the site and read articles. You probably have to follow those steps each time you go to an article. Man, did I just click on like the obituary section? Oh boy. James McNutt. Hopefully no one here knew him. Anyway, there aren't articles on these people. Okay. Did not do that on purpose. Okay, I'm going to end the stream here. If you need help with homework as you're moving forward, email me. Let me check for questions here. All right. Yeah, I usually show you guys, I usually like to show that, I should make a video of just doing that. That's my like attention getter. Okay, I'll check it out, Alex. I'm going to end the stream now and then check emails. So thank you guys for showing up. You can always check back on this video. I'll post it eventually. If you can't find it, I probably forgot, so just ask me if you want to watch it again. I'll try to remember to do that. Okay. Thank you guys.